Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to show you how to revert the firmware of a PS4 12000 model from version 11.2 to 11.00. We'll be using a Teensy for PS4 vTool software and a universal programmer to complete the process. Let's dive right in. I'm demonstrating how to revert to the previously installed firmware on your PS4. Now it is possible because your PS4 has two firmware installed simultaneously. There's one in your inactive slot and one in your active slot. Your active slot is the current firmware version you're booting into. When you update the firmware, the new update is installed in the inactive slot, which then becomes the active slot. The previously installed firmware remains in the inactive slot. Let's check the firmware version of the active slot that was installed. The currently installed software version is 11.02. Fine. So why would you want to revert if you're on say 11.02 or 11.05? There's a good chance that your previously installed firmware was 11.00 or older, allowing you to revert to a jailbreakable firmware. To start, we need to open up the PS4. Carefully remove the connection strips from their connectors. Be sure to keep track of all the screws. Organization is key to ensuring everything goes back together properly. Next, we need to connect the Teensy 4 to the PS4 Syscon chip. But first, we need to separate the VD pin 15 from its solder pad. One of the trickiest parts of this whole process is having to lift one of the pins of the Syscon chip. To do this, I highly recommend using some form of magnification. Obviously, not everyone can afford a professional microscope, but inexpensive magnifying eyepieces are available, and also some low temperature solder or low melt solder will also make it easier to lift the pin of that Syscon chip. It's pin 22 on the 100 pin chips and pins 15 on the 64 pin chips. Only move the legs while they're under heat, not while they're cold, because they have more of a chance of breaking off. Success. The pin has been removed from its solder pad. You can watch the wiring diagrams right there. You can just pause on these images if you need them. Since I am using this circuit diagram, I would like to let you know that you will need to use a 3-volt pin instead of a 5-volt one. Next, we need to connect the Teensy 4 to the PS4 Syscon chip. Carefully attach the Teensy 4 to the appropriate points on the motherboard. Refer to the pinout diagram for precise locations. The final two wires connect to pins 5 and 6. The Teensy 4 is a versatile microcontroller that's perfect for this job. I just want to remind everyone that the VDD wire has been connected to the 3-volt pin. Next, we need to write the patched firmware to the NOR chip using the universal programmer. So we need to connect the NOR chip pins to its adapter to dump and rewrite the patched NOR software. You can either solder directly to the pins, their resistors, pads, and dump flash on board. It can support any flash and is very easy to add new flash. High programming speed. Double check all connections to ensure they're secure. And then I'm just going to hold that down with some sticky tape. I would recommend having some isopropyl alcohol to clean the flux off the board as well. It's good to see that the wires are properly connected to the NOR pins. This is the adapter to which I have connected the NOR chip. Here Teensy 4 is connected to write the patched flash file directly to the Syscon chip. I started the Syscon flash dump by connecting the Teensy 4 to the computer. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we need to back up, of course, our Syscon and NOR. I have thoroughly explained the entire process in this video. Let me go over it again. Once completed, save the dumped firmware file to a secure location on your computer. All you need to do is head to the website and grab the PS4 Downgrade tool. It is super easy to use and should help you out with whatever you are looking to achieve. I just wanted to let you know that there is another tool in the same folder that can have you flash the Teensy. To program the Teensy, you will need to click on the File button and select the appropriate hex file. Please make sure to choose the correct file for its model. The other hex file is for Teensy 4. To erase and program your Teensy, please press the downward arrow button. This will initiate the process of erasing the current program and replacing it with the new one. If you click the auto button, it will automatically reboot after being programmed. Simply here in the device manager, you can easily locate the port number of your Teensy device. Double click on the tool folder to open it. Please be sure to look for the PS4 tool application icon. Double click on the application to run it. Choose the port number from the option provided. Click on the connect button. If the connection is successful, press OK. If you encounter any issue with the dumping processing, simply choose the Enable Syscon Debug Mode option. Please provide the location where you would like to save the dumped file. Pressing on the Start button will commence the operation. We will need to perform the dumping process twice to ensure that both dumps are identical. The file size is only 512 kilobytes, so it would not take much time. As I could not save the current process video. This process video was taken from my previous swap guide videos to help you understand this process. The second dump has started. I recommend using Teensy 4 for all PS4 models as it dumps, writes and verifies without any issues. Teensy 3 can be challenging, particularly when used with a 64-pin Syscon chip. The device even may not work properly if you try to use different voltage regulators. Another option is to use either a Teensy 3 or a Teensy 4 to dump, erase, rewrite and verify the NOR chip, as I have done in my reference swap guide video. However, in this tutorial I will be using a universal programmer for this process. The second dump process was successful. It verified that both dumps are identical. Okay. Let's start with the Syscon because we only need to patch it once. We have two backups of the original Syscon flash here. Let's take one by copying it for the vTool to patch it. Navigate to the PS4 vTools folder and open it. Copy and paste the specified flash file into this folder. We are going to double click to launch it. As you can see, it has a file browser. So we're going to press 1 to enter the file browser. Then we will press 1 again to select the Syscon flash file. It's interesting that in my case it says the status is already patched or stuck on updates. If it says it's patchable or it's likely patchable, any of those messages, that should mean you'll be able to patch your Syscon. If the message is not patchable or probably patchable, then unfortunately the software cannot patch your Syscon. Currently the debug mode is off. If the debug mode is off, select option 1 to turn it on. The debug mode has been turned on. So from here we will select option 3, auto SNVS patch. So we're going to press enter on that. So in my case it says recommended method is C. I will choose method C, which is number 3. We should choose the method it recommends. If it suggests option A or option B, select whichever one is recommended. So in my case it's method C, so I'm going to go ahead and press enter for that. We have successfully saved the patched version of our Syscon writing to the Syscon flash. And that's it, we're done. We can now exit the software. You should save the patched Syscon in the original Syscon folder so that you can write it back to the Syscon later. Here it is. With the same PS4 Syscon Tools application, rewrite the patched file to Syscon flash, selecting the option to write Syscon SNVS only. And that's all. After writing the patched file onto the flash chip, I disconnected the Teensy 4 from the Syscon chip as it is no longer needed. Reconnect the raised pin and remove any excess solder from the chip to avoid bridging any pins. Next, we need to write the patched firmware to the NOR chip using the universal programmer. Connect the NOR chip to the programmer and launch the programming software. Now, let's dump the current firmware. Choose the read option in the universal software. This process will create a backup of your current firmware version, which is essential for safety and a patch process. The dumping process might take several seconds, so be patient. Once completed, save the dumped firmware file to a secure location on your computer. This backup is your safety net in case anything goes wrong. And then we also need to take another dump of it to compare them to make sure they are the same as we did with our Syscon dump. I need to place both NANDs in a single folder to compare them and ensure they are identical. It's good that both NANDs are identical. With the firmware dumped, it's time to prepare the patch. You can open the dumped firmware file in the appropriate software tool to apply the necessary patches. For this process, we will use the same PS4 tools. I've copied and pasted the dumped NOR into the tools folder. Double-click on PS4 tools. To select the file you want to patch, please choose it from the file browser. Here is the file to be selected. You know, if all of this information is loaded and it is correct, like the MAC address for example, if all that information is being loaded, then that's a good sign that you have a good dump of your NOR flash. We can then select option 4 for core or slot switching firmware revert. So we're going to press enter on that. And then we get our switch patterns, which are different, that are used to boot the console into your previously installed firmware version. What we want to do here is simply find the one that matches your SKU model. So mine was a Co 1216R, which means it's probably going to be one of these two patterns that will work for my console. Again, the same if you have two models, but if you have a 1000 or 1100 model, it'll probably be one of these two patterns. Usually the one that matches your SKU model will work. No extras, not even general. So in my case, it's either going to be probably option 3 or option 4. So I'm going to generate patch files for option 3 and option 4. So we have a patched version for slot switch 3 and slot switch 4. And that's all we need to do with the patched files of our NOR backup. I'm going to try slot switch method 3 first of all, and if that one doesn't work, I'll then try slot switch method 4. Now the programmer will perform 3 processes: erase, write and verify, so it will take some time. So it is going to take some time here to get this written into the chip. Okay, so as you can see, it has now been 176 seconds. It's time to check the progress now. After successfully writing the patched firmware, disconnect the NOR chip from the programmer and reassemble your PS4. Carefully place all components back in their original positions and secure the screws. Power on your PS4 and navigate to the TV to check the firmware version. If everything went smoothly, you should now see version 11.00. We've now reverted to 11.00 11.00 or whatever firmware you were able to revert to. You have a backup of your flash and your NOR from 11.00 or whatever firmware you reverted to. So in my case, it was the slot 3 NOR pulse.bin and the patch Syscon backup that I have. Now that I have a backup of that, I can update it multiple times now. I can go to the latest firmware if a new update comes out for a newer firmware. And I'll always have that backup that I can restore to get back to this firmware at any point in the future. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. Here we are installing the 11.00 update because this version is currently jailbreakable. That's it for today's tutorial on reverting the PS4 12.00 model firmware from 11.2 to 11.00. We hope this detailed guide helps you through the process. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. Leave any questions or comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and happy gaming.